Hello everyone. This is a post PB, I guess, post-run commentary of my most recent PB, personal best in Space Station Silicon Valley, any percent speedruns. This is actually the world record as of November 14, 2020. So I'll just be going over the basically reviewing the run after the fact, giving some thoughts on the run itself. The reason why I haven't been posting a lot of videos recently is because I'm bad at posting videos, but also because I was focusing a lot on making this speed run possible. So I was grinding out a lot of runs rather than making content for YouTube. You might have noticed at the start that I started the timer at 2:35, and I started without watching the intro cutscene. The reason we do that is because watching that intro cutscene over and over and over again becomes really boring, especially when you have played this game almost 4,000 times. I probably have played the game over 4,000 times now, or at least watched the intro cutscene. Started runs, I should say. So I would have watched the intro cutscene 4,000 times, and I don't want to see it anymore. So if you start the timer at 2:35, then that basically cancels that out, and then you can start on a file that has already watched the intro cutscene. And I actually have a previous video that compares 3 runs, 2 of which didn't skip the intro cutscene, and 1 of which did, and you can see that they sync up pretty perfectly if you start at the timer at 2:35. So we did the first couple of levels there. They were both fairly decent. Nothing too special, but also nothing bad happened. And now we're in Honeymoon Lagoon. This level is a cycle-based level because right at the end you have to get onto this elevator, and the elevator, of course, goes up and down at fixed cycles. So as long as you get the right cycle, you're good to go. You're supposed to use the sheep to get to the teleporter, but the fastest strats are currently to use the mouse in a strat that we call Leap of Mouse. So here I am. I miss that cycle there, but I call that the legend cycle, and only AC has managed to reach that cycle. So this is the cycle that I normally get, and the best cycle that I can get, I guess, at my current skill level. So that trick there is called the Leap of Mouse. It's quite risky. If you miss it, you can try it again, but it's a 12-second time loss if you do. So if I miss it, I usually reset, and if you miss it twice, then you're probably dead. So it is a risky strat overall, but of course this is my personal best, so I succeed. Here in the battery farm, you're supposed to try to push that ram as close to the corner as possible. I only got about halfway there, so that's not the greatest. The reason why you're supposed to push the ram is because the mouse moves faster than the ram. So if you can push the ram at the speed of the mouse, then you can go faster. What it means that I didn't get that far is that the dog is further along in its cycle than normal, but I did kill the ram fast enough that the dog was still in a decent spot to get stuck up on these bales, and you can headbutt it. You need to headbutt it 9 times, but you only have enough energy to do 6, so you have to sort of stand around and wait. So there we have it. You hit the switch 5 times. Now we have to raise the second bridge, and we need to have both. To raise the second bridge, we need the ram, and then to cross the bridge, you use the dog. So to get both of them over there, you put the ram on the dog's back, like this, get it in the water, and then swap over. And then you can do something we call a hitbox extension there. You basically just headbutt, and that causes the hitbox to extend to areas where it's not supposed to be, and that allows you to hit that switch. And then from here, you just play as the dog and beat the level. So this level went decently well. I did say the ram kill was not the greatest, or the ram push wasn't the greatest, rather. The ram kill was fine. But that didn't end up affecting my time too much, because I still got the dog quite early in its traveling around that barn. So in the engine room, we do a lot of stuff that skips the level. You have to just basically head over to the scientist and you tail whip it, and that will give you the key card. That was a mistake there. I mean, you have to, you know, tail whip it enough to get the key card. Usually one is fine, but it's basically a hitbox extension where you do the tail whip, so similar to the ram. And I guess there I didn't extend my hitbox when I did the one tail whip, so I had to go back. So that's a mistake. Probably cost me around 3 seconds or so. But when I swapped out and swapped back into the Fox, that was to activate a cutscene skip, and now I'm moving through the level during this cutscene skip. You can get pretty far. That's a decent spot for me to get. I did try to boost there, and that's not a good choice. It probably could have screwed me over if it didn't eat my boost, so it's fine. And then here is the trick we call Leap of Fox, which is another run-killing trick. I'm going to get it because this is my PB. If I didn't get it, then I would have reset, and this wouldn't have been my PB. But basically, you just line yourself up at a specific angle, specific distance, and you sort of boost, and it works. So that level, also not the greatest, because of that missed tail whip for getting the key card, so I had to go back in. But, you know, nothing disastrous happened, so that's fine. So here's Fat Bear Mountain. If you go fast enough, you can hit the dog on an early cycle as it circles around its area. Right there you can hit it, but I was relatively slow. That's another thing that only AC has been able to do, so this is the best I can do. And then you can kill the dog by falling down on top of it and tail whipping it. One thing that you can do when you hit it the first time, it's possible to hit the dog in a way that it enters its cycle again in a faster spot. And I missed that, so it wasn't the greatest. But there is another cutscene skip. That's why I hit the switch as Evo, so that I can get this cutscene skip. And during the cutscene, you can kill the bear most of the way, and then lure the bear to the switch and kill it on the switch so that you can push the switch without actually swapping into the bear. We call that bear skip. Now, as part of this next cutscene, I actually swap into the mouse because the mouse makes this next trick easier. This is called the FBM jump, and you just use it to get to the teleporter. So that level was done very well, actually. The only thing that could have gone better is if I got the faster dog cycle. But no complaints there. And if you have a good Fat Bear Mountain, usually you have a good run. So this is a very good run at this point. So here's getting into the pen early, and I missed it, which is not great. That probably cost me like 5 or 6 seconds, and here I'm really screwing up. Unbelievable. Trying to set that up. I'm so triggered right now, probably. Another big mistake right here. You have to kill the spring ram in order to beat this level in the speedrun route. And I killed the regular ram, or the regular spring sheep, instead. And that is terrible because not only did I have to swap again, but I also watched an extra new animal cutscene, which is, you know, another 3 or so seconds. So this level has gone terribly, but fortunately I did get the gravity clip, which is what you just saw there, so you can turn off the gravity and allow the spring ram to jump across the level. The reason why you need the spring ram is because the spring ram jumps a little bit higher than the spring sheep, and so you can only do the gravity clip if you have the spring ram. This level is supposed to be very easy and very consistent. Usually you lose like a maximum of 2 seconds relative to your fastest possible time. 2 seconds at the most. And I think I lost about 16 here. So when I had a good run at the end of FBM, now I have a really bad run that I'm not really happy with. But it's not bad enough for me to call it quits yet. So I keep going. So Stinky Sewers, we're basically going to get the King Rat and then exit the level. And to do that, so this is dog movement here, as you use missiles to boost yourself up into there. Sometimes you can miss that little pathway. I didn't, so that's good. And this trick here, we call it up dog. You use it to get into the King Rat area early. That barely worked, actually, but it was fine in the end. And then you can get through that bar just by backing through it. So the king rat fight is relatively easy, but there's some RNG associated with it in terms of where the king rat decides to walk after you hit it. And you can see it walk to the far end, which is not actually the worst, because it's still easy to hit it. If it decides to walk behind the toilet, then you have to reposition yourself, and that takes a lot of time. So this is not the greatest spot for the king rat to go, but it's also acceptable. Here I am just mashing the C down button, being annoying. Don't mind me. And yeah, this is one of the levels where you don't have to complete all of the objectives to activate the teleporter. So you just have to bring the king rat to it, and then the teleporter will activate. Yeah, so this was a good Stinky Sewers. About the best I could do without having better RNG. So no complaints there. I'm probably still just a little bit bitter about what happened in Rocky Hard Place. Now, when I was doing my attempts this day, actually no, it was the day before, where I was losing constantly on Ratomatic. My runs were just dying left, right, and center here. And Ratomatic is another one of these levels that's normally very consistent. Not as consistent as Rocky Hard Place should be, but you know, you should usually be within like 5 seconds of the end. So here you can kill the mouse through this barrier, and if it's close enough to the door, then you can swap through the door to get it. Normally you can't swap through walls, but because that's not a wall, it's a door, you can swap through it. Now here we do a little trick where you start the cutscene on the target, I guess, and get sucked up into the pipe while you're off of it. I'm not very good at explaining that, but that's the gist of it. And that causes you to get launched upwards and allowing you to get out of the Ratomatic sooner than you're supposed to. Ratomatic, by the way, is another level where you don't have to complete the objectives to activate the teleporter. So the goal here is basically just get to the teleporter instead of complete the objectives. You can just squeeze through that, and that's actually a really fast squeeze. It wasn't like instantly, I did hit the barrier there, but it was only briefly. This trick we can call barrier skip, and that was the trick that I was failing a lot the day before this, but I got it first try there. You have to set your mouse at a specific angle and move properly and turn at the right time, and that lets you bounce up and over the barrier. That was a very good Ratomatic, though. The thing that separates a very good Ratomatic from a decent Ratomatic is basically how quickly you do the clip into the mouse layer. Since I got a basically insta-clip, that was a really good Ratomatic. So the run is looking better at this point for me, because I did have a good Fat Bear Mountain, and I did have a decent Sewers and a good Ratomatic. It's just Rocky Hard Place. 16 seconds gone there is a lot. And here I'm just, flying through the rings. It's not a big deal. This is GADAB, not BCP. Give a dog a bonus. It's usually not the biggest deal, but there is some randomness associated with it. Basically just in terms of how long it takes to kill these dogs. The strategy is to sort of shoot them through this wall, and you can group them all up and hit multiple dogs with the same shots. And then you can kill a bunch of them. That was probably average speed, so I think I ended up getting a 129 here, which I would consider very average for a give a dog a bonus. And then for the foxes, you just sort of fly at them and shoot them, and then you're done. Yeah, there it is, a 129. So my best ever was a 124. The best ever is a 122, I think, by AC, 143. And I think the task that I did, my most recent task, also got a 122. So AC is playing at task level. Now I exited Europe at about 18 minutes there, which is actually not that great. A better time is more like 1740. So this run is actually not that great at the moment. But whatever. So Snow Joke is another one of these levels that's actually really easy, but my previous PB screwed it up and lost 4 seconds, when usually you're supposed to lose a max of like 1 second. And so I'm not going to screw this up, and I will save time relative to my previous PB. But yeah, I will play it, you know, well, but also entirely average. That weird glitch there, we call that the hot new speed tech, and it's explained in one of my things you can do videos, so you can check out that. I think it's episode 11 for a full explanation of why that works. My previous PB played relatively poorly in the first half of the Arctic, and so this is a time where I could catch up, save time relative to my previous PB. My previous PB, by the way, was a 1:07:42, and the previous world record was a 1:07:37 by AC 143. So the big trick in Ice and Easy Does It is the cliff clip, which normally there's this area here that you're supposed to use a walrus to get to, but you can reach it as the heli rabbit. If you miss it, you lose about 8 seconds. So there it was, and that was actually very clean. So I won't be losing 8 seconds here. And yeah, my previous PB did miss it, so I'm going to save some more time relative to that. And then there's not much more to say about this level. It was good enough. Oh, that's not the greatest. But that probably cost me about 2 seconds. So instead of saving 8 seconds, I'll save 6. Which is, you know, I'm happy with. Now, Penguin Playpen is all about killing the seagull as fast as possible. So I am the only person who has ever done a 1-round seagull kill. So there, see, this is where I say I'm starting the second round, but when I jump back up the slope there. That was almost a 1-round. I was 1 snowball away from the 1-rounder. So this isn't great. My previous PB also had a 2-rounder. I say it's not great, but it's not great for me, whereas, you know, nobody else can do a 1-round. Or nobody else has done one yet, I should say. So this is actually pretty good. And that was a really fast 2-rounder where I just needed 1 extra snowball. And because that was a fast one, I think my previous PB had almost 10 seconds that was there to save. And so I'm not going to save all 10 of them because this one was a 2-rounder as well. But I will still save time here, I think. So, having finished Penguin Playpen, I'm going to skip now to the jungle. The reason for that is because we're doing something we call the knack skip route. Knack is new animal cutscene. For whatever reason, if you play the levels out of order, you can skip up to 2 new animal cutscenes. They just don't happen anymore as a result of you playing the levels out of order. And that happens by going into the jungle at the end of Penguin Playpen. So that's why I'm going over here instead of continuing on with the Arctic. This trick is called elephantless. Normally you're supposed to play as the elephant to pick up a boulder and move it out of the way, but you can squeeze through the boulder. The other thing you use the elephant for is hitting this switch, but you can do it as Evo and the turtle. This is a very risky strat because you basically die by going into that pit, and you lose a lot of health. So you can see there I'm at maybe 20% health, which is pretty good actually, all things considered. But by doing that and getting a cutscene skip, because I swap back into the turtle as the cutscene started, you can save a boatload of time. And of course you use your splash damage to kill all of the piranha at the same time, and swim to the exit. So because I nailed elephantless, didn't die, and I got the cutscene skip, this was a really good level, and I was happy with it. So Jungle Doldrums is basically you kill the hippo, use it to hit a switch, and then do a trick, and then kill the parrot, and get to the teleporter. That's it. I had the hippo turn to the left before I started pushing it, because that allows you to push it farther than if you have the hippo turn to right. And the reason why you push it is to get the animals closer to where they need to be. I don't know why you push the hippo faster if it's turned to the left, but apparently it is, so that's just how it is. And so the trick that we use in this level is called the hippo jump. You sort of push the hippo into the wall, and then put the hyena on top of it and swap rapidly between the two. And that launches the hyena way up in the air, and you get over the wall. You have a specific frame window where you're allowed to, or where you can, I should say, where you can swap into the hyena. And it's not that tight, but sometimes you can miss it and you have to launch the hyena again. But I got it first try, so I didn't lose a bunch of time. If you have to do it again, it takes probably about 4 or 5 seconds. The parrot kill is really easy because it gets paralyzed by your laughter, and you just have to hold B. You're good to go. But another decent level in the jungle. And here we are in Swamp of Eternal Stench, where I absolutely nailed this level. This was my best Swamp of Eternal Stench ever. A lot of it has to do with killing this gorilla as the turtle, which is actually really hard to do. I got incredibly lucky with how the gorilla behaved, and it basically just stood there and let me kill it. So that's why this was my best Swamp of Eternal Stench ever, was because of how extremely lucky I got with the gorilla's movement. That trick there is just called a gorilla jump, and we use it to get the magic rope activated early, and then we carry the barrel over because we're also going to gorilla jump to get to the teleporter, so that we never have to ride the magic rope. But in order to kill a hyena, we have to butt stomp on it, and so we do that. That hyena can be a little bit tricky to control. Sometimes it runs away from you, but that time I executed it well, and it stayed where I needed it to be. But yeah, this level was amazing. As I said, it's my best ever Swamp of Eternal Stench, so that was really good. So far my jungle has been amazing. I've saved time relative to my PB on every level. I haven't screwed up anything significantly, and I even had my best ever level on one of the levels. So this is really good. Wait for it though, my old PB played this level nearly perfectly. I think it was 1 second off of my best ever, which is amazing. So I'm likely to lose time here. But you want to kill the gorilla with 4 roars, and you want to do a jump swap there. My jump swap is to position the lion in the right spot after I set up a gorilla jump here to get the elephant. That wasn't the greatest because you'd rather have the lion really close to the gorilla. Because of where I ended up killing the gorilla, I couldn't do that. So I lost a bit of time there. Because I had to walk over to the lion instead of the thing. I did get the lion in the tree though, so I never had to walk around as the elephant, and that's good. So now, this level, is a lot of it's about gorilla jumping, so you really just have to push this gorilla around a bunch. And then you jump up over to here to get to the piranha area, and you can basically skip all of the puzzles in this level. But yeah, so far this is an okay wait for it, because I didn't get the lion in a good position after killing the thing. And I can tell how good I'm playing based on where this piranha is when I roar at it, and it's basically average. This trick is called the YOLO fish, aka the free fish, depending on whether or not you have to do it yet. It's the YOLO fish until it's done, and then it becomes the free fish. But basically, yeah, that's the fastest way to get to the teleporter from where you're at. So that was not the greatest wait for it, but it was good enough. And yeah, I lost time relative to my PB, or relative to my old PB, I should say. But it was decent. This trick here is a new trick, actually, that's called the Evo launch. And so this is a trick that my PB does that my old PB didn't. I'm not going to explain that trick right now, but you can see what it did. That trick isn't like significantly faster than what my old PB did, which was a hyena jump. But it is like way more consistent, way easier to do. The hyena jump serves 2 purposes though. It gets the key and puts the hyena right close to the gorillas. So instead of doing that, we have to do a different trick here that we call the jumps jump. And that's what that looks like, or at least that's my setup for it. And that's, again, also way easier than the hyena jump. The hyena jump is just a pain in the butt. So by doing the Evo launch and the jumps jump, you make this level way more consistent. It is possible to group these gorillas up so that your missiles hit both of them in a strat that's called the double gorilla, but I didn't get it, so I just killed them single gorilla style. The last thing we have to do is the key jump, which is where you jump off this jump, I guess, and collect the key. That trick is pretty hard, and my old PB actually had a very good jungle, except it missed the key jump. And so my current PB did get the key jump, and therefore saved a lot of time. And so at this point, I think I was about 15 seconds ahead of my old PB. And then we just head into jungle. This isn't jungle anything. This is Evo's Escape, which is a boring level, auto-scroller, but usually I would have liked to kill the very first chameleon there, so I would have had 1,000 points right now. But I missed it, so I only have 500. It's not the biggest deal, but that just means I have to kill more turtles during the shooting gallery. You need 12,100 points, and so it's important that you kill at least one of these hyenas, because that gives you 100 points. And that 100 points is important, but if you have 200 points, it's not important, because 12,100 is enough. 12,200 isn't any better. By using these missiles, you should be able to kill all of these piranha, and it looks like I did, so we're good there. So yeah, here I have, 4,600 out of a possible 5,200 points, but that extra 100, only 500 of those 600 extra points are relevant. Here, these piranhas are not nearly as easy to kill, and how many of them do I end up killing? I think I only get 2 of them. I did, so that's actually not the greatest, but those piranha are a lot more difficult to kill. So yeah, only having about 6,000 going into the shooting gallery isn't great. But during the shooting gallery, we focus on the turtles because they give 500 points, as do the chameleons, but the turtles are way easier to hit, so you just sort of, yeah, why go for the hard ones? We can go for the easy ones. But the goal is to have 12,100 points by the end of the shooting gallery section. So I need one more turtle. There it is. And then the rest of the level, you basically just stare at the roof in order to reduce lag. And that's why it's important to try to have 12,100 points by the end of the shooting gallery. Actually, even if you're halfway through the shooting gallery, it's good. There is some lag in the shooting gallery section that you would like to avoid. But yeah, the sooner you get the 12,100, the better. The exception being, there was a time I looked at the roof during the hyena section of the level, and that's just because there's a lot of lag in that section, and hyenas are only worth 100 points each, so that's not worth the lag that you get. It's only worth it to kill the animals that have 500 points. This, though, was an amazing jungle. The entire jungle section was played well. The only time I lost time was in Wait For It, and that's not because I played Wait For It poorly, so much as it was because my old PB had played it amazingly. The only thing left here is to kill Evo at the end of this level, which is pretty easy to do, so we can call it right now. This was my jungle RTA record as well. So this is the fastest recorded jungle. The fastest anybody has ever completed the jungle with video evidence. So that was an amazing jungle. And there it is. So after beating the jungle, we go to Fun in the Sun, because, the desert comes next. But for whatever reason, going to Fun in the Sun also is supposed to help the new Animal Cutscene skip route. So you have to remember that we haven't completed the second half of the Arctic yet. Now, Fun in the Sun has a few tricks. The first is called the pump jump, which is that. You can get onto this pump before the cutscene plays, and that saves about 4 seconds. That's the only switch in the game that you can activate by shooting. That's just a fun little fact. The second trick is a cutscene skip that you do right here, and if you play this cutscene skip well, you can get on the elevator a cycle early and save another 4-ish seconds. So here I go for the cutscene skip, swap out of the animal, swap into it. And now I'm trying to get on the elevator, but it's very difficult because I don't know where I am and I don't really know where the elevator is either. But I made it anyway. I do have a little bit of a setup there based on time. You just sort of count and then change your motion. But that also saves 4 seconds. So that was a perfectly played level. Wasn't my fastest ever, but that was just because of, like, you know, small movement optimizations that I didn't do. But it was probably like half a second or less slower than my fastest ever. But yeah, now you can see we actually went back to the Arctic because we've completed the requirements to skip the new animal cutscenes. And so here we're killing the king penguin. This was not the greatest king penguin kill. It sort of got stuck on the tree, and it's not supposed to. Instead, it's supposed to walk towards this pillar. But it also wasn't the worst. Now, you did see there that I got the new animal cutscene for the king penguin. The next skip route is supposed to skip that. We haven't worked out why it's so inconsistent. One possible explanation is that way back in Europe, when I was in Rocky Hard Place, I made a big mistake and swapped into the spring sheep instead of the spring ram. That might have screwed something up, but it is confusing. We don't know exactly how the next skip route works, but this route is the one that most consistently skips the cutscenes. There are two new animal cutscenes that we skip, the king penguin and the cool cod in Something Fishy. And by the way, the next skip route is not necessarily faster than just playing the levels in order. One thing that it does that I like is it lets you get to some of the harder levels first, specifically jungle japes. And so if you screw up the hard level, then the earlier you get there, the faster you can reset, so you're not wasting as much time on a run that you don't know is already dead, I guess. Right? If you play the hard levels first, then you know if you're having a good run earlier, and you know if you have to reset earlier. So that's why I do the next skip route. There are 6 patterns on the piano. 2 of them are fast, 2 of them are sort of medium, and 2 of them are slow. This pattern we call the unnamed tune, and it is one of the 2 fastest patterns. Technically it's not the fastest, but the difference between it and the fastest pattern is pretty minuscule. Having a bad pattern can cost you like 6, 7, or 8 seconds. It's quite a bit, but fortunately I didn't get that, and so this turned out to be an okay pinball blizzard. Remembering that I did not get the new animal cutscene skip, and my king penguin kill wasn't the greatest, so that would have made it bad, but it was salvaged basically because of some good RNG on the piano section. There is actually a small risk that you get 2 king penguin new animal cutscenes. So I'm always a little bit worried when I enter this king penguin, but it almost never happens, so there it is. The fastest route through this level requires you to clip through that wall, so you can just butt stomp one of these guys. This level is really hard to do fast. It requires some very precise, very confident movement, and really good management of your bomb energy. And then at the end of the route here, you have to kill this husky. And this husky kill can be quite difficult if you don't set it up properly. That was a really good husky kill though. So this is looking to be a decent Hoppa Choppa. Looks like the movement isn't super clean, but it's a challenge because you want to make sure you actually killed the things you're trying to kill, but then that requires you to stand around watching to make sure that it actually dies, right? Whereas the best movement, and there's a couple of bombs there, that wasn't so great. The best movement would require you to just sort of assume that the animals are dead and move on, There's a trick here called fast fall. If you just clip on the side of the cliff there as you descend, you end up falling a little bit faster. And I nailed that. So that was a pretty good level, except for a couple of bombs there. Yeah, and so in Fishy, there's a couple of things to do. First of all, you can, if you reset or recalibrate the analog stick in certain ways, at certain points in time, you can cause the cod to swim up or down faster. And so I'm doing that throughout the level. And then here's this trick here that's called cod escape. You basically go up against the slope and spam R to try to jump out. That was basically I would call that a second try cod escape, because I first beached the cod and then didn't get out, and then it fell back in the water, and then I beached it again, and then it jumped out. So that's what I call second try. Second try is not the greatest, but cod escape is kind of random. You can move during this cutscene, and so I tried to do my best to get further back, as far back as possible. My movement there was pretty good, not the best, but definitely, you know, above average. And then, yeah, basically the rest of this level is just swimming well. And the cod swims faster if, instead of holding the A button, you spam it. And the faster you spam, usually the faster you go. It is possible to spam too fast, because this level has just a lot of lag in it. And so if you're too fast, you might hit A during a lag frame, and then let go of A by the time the lag frames end, and then that basically eats your input. So it can be possible to spam too fast. But generally speaking, the faster you spam, the better. I jumped really early there and barely made it over. Also, while I was doing that, I was recalibrating my analog stick so that I could swim down faster. So that was pretty sketchy, but it was fine in the end. So that was a decent Fishy, except it was a second try cod escape, which is not so great. But it wasn't, you know, I would call that an average Fishy, I guess, as a result of the second try cod escape. Wall race is just about going fast, with one exception, where you also want to start in front of this orange guy, so that the orange guy doesn't steal that first boost from you. And the rest of it is grabbing boosts and going fast. So let's see how I do. That wasn't the greatest movement because I bonked it up against the wall, but that didn't cost me too much time. That was a decent second lap. And you can tell you're on a good pace if you start lapping the walruses around here, which is what I did. Ooh, just barely grabbed that boost before the orange guy. That was big. If the orange guy grabbed that boost, then it would have basically grabbed all of the boosts for the rest of the stage. But it did. So this was a 105, and that's great. It was a 105, right? Yeah, there you go. You can, during this cutscene, move around, collect the trophy, and head towards the teleporter. And you can see I almost got on the teleporter during the cutscene. I think I'm the only person to have ever gotten on the teleporter during the cutscene, but being right beside it is really good. So that was an amazing wall race. But yeah, now all that's left is the rest of the desert. So killing these foxes can be really difficult. That was decent though, so I should be happy about that. Killing this vulture is also sometimes difficult, but that was decent. So this is a good run. The vulture hit me once, but that's not enough to cause any worries. If the vulture hits you twice, then you need to be worried, even though it still looks like I have a lot of health. I need all of that health in order to blow up the speakers as the desert fox, because every speaker you blow up damages you. And so throughout this level, you're constantly losing health just by blowing up speakers. And so even though one hit from the vulture doesn't look like a big deal, it can be. And as I said, one hit is okay, but you're going to end the level with very little health. And if you have two, then you either have to go out of your way to grab some health, or hope that the health box that you blow up later launches the health out in a good direction that doesn't cause you to lose a lot of time. So there's that switch under the ground in Scorpion Den, and you can hit it with a hitbox extension. And that's what happened there. So this is the health box that's just sort of, you know, there. I didn't need that health, but it bounced out in a good direction. So I felt like being really safe, because at this point I was on a good run and I didn't want it to accidentally die due to me miscalculating how much health I had. Though I probably didn't need it. So I could have beaten this level probably a little bit faster, but getting that health probably only cost me about half a second at the most. You always blow up that box anyway, because it's just sort of in the way as you're spinning. So it's not like blowing up the box costs time, but grabbing the health, if it's not directly in your path, will cost you a little bit of time. Otherwise though, that was a decent hot cross buns, which hot cross buns is a really hard level to play well, for different reasons than beginners think. For beginners, the scorpions can often kill them, but for experienced runners, it's more about how quickly do you kill the foxes at the start and how quickly do you kill the vulture at the start. So this level, Sting in the Tail, is basically just a lot of walking around. Here you really want to kill the kangaroos fast. The kangaroo did jump there, which is not ideal, because then you have to wait for it to land before you start killing it again. That was probably an average kangaroo kill. And from here you can head to the center to try to kill the vultures. The vultures take 1 punch and then 6 butt stomps, or 7 butt stomps, or a bunch of punches. And usually it's easiest to butt stomp them. But that wasn't very good luck. So that was a pretty bad vulture kill overall. And then to get to the exit, you do a pillar squeeze, which looks like that. So I wasn't very happy with this level because of the vulture kill. That was a pretty sloppy vulture kill, and I should have saved time, or at least tied, but I think I ended up losing time probably. So here is another cutscene skip in Jurassic Park. I'm trying to hit the camera and swap into the fox at the same time. And you can see I tried it once and failed it, and tried it a second time, and then activated the cutscene while still failing. So that was disastrous, which for me at this point is very disheartening, because all 3 of my recent PBs have had really bad Jurassic Parks. So going into this level, there was 20 seconds of time save available to me. If I played perfectly, I would have saved 20 seconds. Here's another trick that I missed. That's just called a slope jump. And again, I'm just not playing this level very well. Which again, very disheartening, because I'm supposed to save a lot of time here. And I didn't. Fortunately, that means that I'm not going to lose time relative to my PB. And I am still ahead of my PB at this point, my old PB. Another thing that needs to happen here is this dinosaur needs to pop up at a good time. And it basically popped up at the perfect time. It could have popped up a little bit sooner, but then you sort of have to do that jump without fully preparing yourself for it. The kangaroo here can move in 2 different paths. This is the slow path. Not because it's actually slower, but because it's harder to hit the kangaroo. And therefore it takes longer to kill. And that's what makes it slower. But theoretically, you could hit the kangaroo just as... Or if you were just as accurate with both paths, it would have been just as fast. That was an average finish. But yeah, that entire level, I ended up losing a little bit of time relative to my old PB there. And so now I'm going into Whirlwind Tour, and I really need to get this Whirlwind Tour skip first try, which I did. And so at this point, I'm super stoked on this run, because that trick is not consistent in any way. And my old PB also got it first try, so I really needed to get that in order for this to stand a chance. Now, somehow I missed grabbing that health, which is triggering. This kangaroo can randomly decide it's just going to end your career. So it's really good to be at full health at this point. It turns out I didn't need it, but better safe than sorry. When I'm on PB pace, I like to go a little bit slow during that river crossing there. It is possible to go faster, but whatever. Killing these vultures involves basically trying to push one off the cliff and then butt stomping on it. That wasn't the fastest, but it was decent. Sometimes, again, the vultures can be a little bit difficult, just like we saw in Sting in the Tail, where I just failed to butt stomp them. But this time around, it all worked out. That trick is called the turbo launch. Sometimes it doesn't work. Usually it works. And this time it did work, so we're good to go. This was a decent Whirlwind Tour. If I recall correctly, right now I'm like a second or 2 behind my PB, going into the last 3 levels. Shifting Sands is kind of a frustrating level because it is relatively easy, but sometimes the vulture can just decide to be a jerk. And there's also time saves in the sense that sometimes your boomerang does twice as much damage as normal, and sometimes it doesn't. So the vulture takes 5 hits for it to be killed, but sometimes you can do it in 3 if the game lets you. But the first thing that needs to happen is you have to kill the kangaroo. This is not the best kangaroo kill, but that's pretty decent. My best ever probably could have killed that 2 seconds faster. And here we go. So 1 hit, 2 hits, 3 hits, 4 hits, 5 hits. Now, fortunately, all of my boomerang throws actually connected. Sometimes the vulture can be an even bigger jerk and fly too high for your boomerangs to hit. So I didn't get the greatest RNG, but I also didn't get the worst RNG. And I think I saved a little bit of time there relative to my PB, so I think I'm ahead at this point. And then we're into Punch Up. Punch Up is also a very stressful level to have at the end of the game because there's a trick that we call AC Camel. And it can just straight up soft lock the level if you screw it up. So, but the AC camel probably saves 10 to 15 seconds at least. So it's like critical that I get it. We did find out recently that if you jump once on each animal per round, then you can punch it one less time to kill it. If you idle long enough, you can also do some passive punches as part of the kangaroo's idle animation, and those punches just happen to do damage. And so that's why I was just sort of standing around there, because that saves time. It allows you to do damage without having to spend energy for punching. Okay, so here I am setting up the AC camel. You need the super camel, the cannon camel, to spawn on top of you, and then it needs to teleport to the side of the ring, and then you have to push it out of bounds a little bit. So there, and then you push it out of bounds. The problem is that it's supposed to teleport and then sort of connect with the wall instead of teleport over the wall. If it teleports over the wall, it will go all the way out of bounds and you can't reach it. If it teleports into the wall, then you can push it over the edge. So there I am, sort of standing around waiting for my idle animation to kick in. But yeah, I did manage to hit the AC camel, and so this punch up is looking decent. I killed the regular camel before the 30-second count showed up, which is really good. At least I think. I think the 30-second count was about to show up, but that's about as good as you can get. And then by getting the AC camel, it's really easy to kill the super camel on time. And so this has been a really good punch up so far. Most of the time and most of the challenge is in the kangaroo fight, though. This fight is very difficult to do amazingly well. In theory, you should be able to kill the kangaroo just as fast as the regular camel. The super camel is easy because it just sort of stands there and lets you punch it. But in theory, you should be able to kill the kangaroo as the 30-second count pops up. In practice, that doesn't happen because it's very difficult. I think Cracker Bean managed to do it once. So here I hit the 7 count as the 30-second count shows up. Which is still decent. And this last round here was an absolute slaughter. There was probably 20 seconds left on the clock. So I'm feeling really good at this point because my PB also played Punch Up Pyramid very well, but not this well. So I saved time here. And this was my first ever attempt since my PB that was ahead going into Big Celebration Parade. I had a few runs that were close to PBing, but never ahead. They were always behind by a little bit, and I needed to save time in Big Celebration Parade. But this one was already ahead going into Big Celebration Parade, and therefore was my best chance at doing it. You'll notice something weird here with the text. That's because I did something called a level select glitch. And that caused the text for Punch Up Pyramid to appear in Big Celebration Parade. That becomes important in the second half, where at the end of the game, Dan goes on this huge rant about how he saved the world and how there's no ending because he sold it to buy a new spaceship. That text just sort of disappears and lets you beat the level about 30 seconds faster, just by cutting off a cutscene at the end. But I did get that level select glitch first try, and so that sets me up quite nicely. I will say going into this level that my PB didn't have the greatest big celebration parade. My old PB, that is. Now, as the second text box pops up here, you can restart the level to skip the crashing into the Earth cutscene. But yeah, there was, you know, there's about 40 seconds of possible time save for me. But this level is very difficult to save all 40 of those seconds, and so that sounds like a lot, but realistically, there's probably about 20 seconds I could expect to save if I play well. If everything lines up perfectly, then I save 40 seconds. But the strategy here is to head over to this area and then jump up to kill these two flying dogs as quickly as possible. Absolutely nailed that. The flying fox comes over and you should try to kill it as well. Nailed it. And then the king rat shows up just by the shore and you can trap it here. The king rat can, like, go extra fast and you end up missing it there, and then you're basically screwed, because finding the king rat later can be a big challenge. So these sheep spawns aren't the best, mostly because of this spring sheep over here, which is kind of in a far corner. I've seen worse sheep spawns though. So I did notice this mouse in the top right here, which is very important for me, because these mouse spawns were amazing. There are 7 animals per spawn, so that's 2 killed, 3, 4, 5, 6. Right? And then that 7th one, I already know where it is. So I don't have to spend any time looking for any mice, since they were all in that group except for this one. So that was like the best mouse spawn I've ever seen. You can sort of gauge how fast you are based on when this rat shows up. And at this point, I don't think I've ever seen myself reach or kill the rat in that spot, because usually I'm slower than this. So I know I'm on a super sick pace right now. 7 frogs. There's the 7th frog. The biggest problem though is the dogs. If the dogs decide to spawn in a messed up way, then you're basically just screwed. Now pay attention to the flying dogs here. There's 2 of them. Usually it's not a good strategy to focus them down because they follow you through the level. So I killed one, but you see that other one just flew to the left there. And I think I'm going to come back, or it's going to follow me, and I'll just kill it when it shows up. But I'm wandering around here and it's not showing up. So I was like, what happened to it? That's a big problem. This dog fortunately got stuck in this U-shaped building, and I've only killed 5 animals at this point. So there's this dog that didn't spawn initially. I walked past there as the dogs had already spawned, and I just got screwed over. But you see here what happened. This flying dog got stuck in the corner. I was aware of that happening, so at least I knew where to look. But this was a miserable dog spawn. So I went from, like I said, I knew I was on a super epic pace when I killed that rat in the right spot, to like now this is just like not a very good BCP anymore, because those dog spawns were just miserable. But there is 40 seconds of time to save, and I'm not going to save all 40 of them, but there's still a lot of time to save. That was a really good rat section. The last thing that's important is the flying fox that spawns. If it stays by the water, you are good to go and you can kill it really easily. And I got lucky, and there it stayed right by the water, and as you can see, I just destroyed it super fast. So at this point, I basically know I have the world record. It's just a question of how fast is it. There's the last animal. And time. So the real time was a 107.21, but because I'm retiming it, my splits were a little bit different. But yeah, close enough, I guess. But yeah, that was my PB, and there's some, you know, post-commentary thoughts about it. It was a really good run, minus 2 levels. Remember Rocky Hard Place, where I killed the wrong animal, swapped into it, and then had to go back and kill the right animal and swap into it. And then the other one was Boracic Park, where there was 20 seconds of time to save, and I just threw it all away. So this run, if I played a little bit better, could have been a 106, 45-ish, but it is what it is, and what it is the world record as of, you know, November 14, 2020. If you're watching this in 2021, maybe there's a new record, who knows? But at the time of recording, that's the world record. If you want to watch this run, you know, sort of as it played out, it's not live anymore, but as it played out, there's a link to my Twitch highlight in the description, and you can see how chat was reacting throughout the run, what I was saying throughout the run, as it happened. But yeah, thanks for watching. Have a good one.